I finally finished this book and I need to talk about it, but I want to do it in kind of a concise way so that doesn't take me 50 million years. So I figured I would do a 3 reasons why you should read this book and 1 reason why maybe it's not the book for you type video. I've done a couple of these on my channel before, and yeah, I kind of like the format. So that's what I'm going to do with this book. So I have my notes on my phone, and yeah, I'm gonna get into it. So in this book we're following Ren. She's our main character. She is a thief turned con artist and she lives in, oh god. Okay, so one of the things I didn't like about this book was all the words that I couldn't pronounce. She lives in Nadezhra. Maybe that's how you say it. It's a Venetian style city full of like rivers and little whatever. We'll get into that later. And she is trying to work her way into high society there, basically. She's trying to con her way into one of the established families in this city. Okay, so the first thing that I loved about this book, and is something that you should take into consideration if you're trying to decide if you want to read this book or not, is the setting that I mentioned. M.A. Carrick, it's a duo of authors. They have such an amazing grasp on details, I guess. Is that what I want to say? Like, their descriptions of this city make it so vivid, and you just kind of get immersed in it. You feel like you're there. You can see everything in your mind as you're reading. I don't want to say it's description heavy, because I don't think that's true, although we'll come back to that too. They spend quite a bit of time building up the setting in this book to the point where, like I said, you feel like you're there and you can really picture where everything is happening, and I just think that's so awesome. So if you're a really like visual kind of reader and you really like those descriptions that make it so that you can see exactly, like you can picture what they are envisioning as they're writing it, I think you'll definitely enjoy this book for that aspect. To go a little bit off the actual point, which was the setting, just the descriptions in general. So the magic system in this book is based on like a tarot-esque kind of magic. And it's just really interesting, and you can really understand the magic system because they go into a lot of detail. Well, not too much detail. They didn't go into too much detail, but they went into enough detail that you can really get a full grasp on the magic in this book, and I really appreciated that. I don't want to say an unimaginative reader, but I enjoy the help in visualizing what I'm reading about, so I liked that in this book as well. The second reason I think you should pick up this book is if you're looking for books that have like LGBT plus representation in them, this book is amazing for that. I believe at least half of the author duo is queer. The LGBT themes in this book are so effortlessly woven into it. In this society, it's just so normalized to be queer that it almost doesn't matter. But it's done in a way that isn't like, oh, we just threw that in there just to say that we had it in our book. It's done in a way that it's like, it's just done so well. It's done in a way that it's important, but it's not important, but it's important. But it's just so normal that you almost don't think about it being in the story, except for the fact that I loved the way it was done so much, and that's why I noticed it. Does that make any sense at all? I hope it does. I don't know. But what I mean by it's so just like part of the society and it's just so normalized, I actually marked a quote. When I started reading this originally, I was vlogging my experience reading it, and I was originally going to just do like a vlog of reading this book. I decided against that. But I do remember I picked up the camera at one point on one specific line that I got to that kind of emphasizes this point, so I'm going to read that. I did mark it off. So it's on page 205, and the line is, again, I'm sorry, if I mispronounce all of these words, I apologize. Vargo is in the middle of a rapid exchange with a spare, angular person in a panel coat and the braids of a Keurig leader. One of the Lahose then, born a woman, but taking on a male identity so he could lead his people. Only sons were allowed to be Keurig leaders, and if there were none, or if all available ones were incompetent, then a daughter would become a son instead. Just natural. It's just part of life. If your sons are all idiots, your daughter's going to become your son, and that's just how it is. The character that I actually mentioned in that quote, Vargo, he's one of the main-ish characters, and he is gay, or bi, one or the other. So you do have representation within the main cast of characters, but it's also just woven so intricately through society in this book that I really appreciated it. I loved it. I find personally, not that my opinion on the subject really matters, but I find personally a lot of times when, I kind of mentioned it earlier, when there are LGBT plus characters or themes in books, a lot of times it can feel heavy-handed, like the author is just putting it in there to say, yeah, we have representation in our book. So the way this was done, I really liked it, and if that sounds like intriguing to you or something that you look for in books, I would definitely recommend picking this book up. Okay, so 10 minutes into filming, I just realized that I had a fan on in the background that whole time. It's not super annoying, but if it is, I apologize. It's gone now. And the final reason why I think you should read this book is the characters themselves. Character development in this book is great. I love it because there are certain characters that you're just like, oh, you've had so much development and you've turned into a completely different character than I thought you were in the beginning. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes they're exactly who they were in the beginning of the book. And obviously I'm not going to go into who is who, but I love this book. I love the characters in this book. I love the character development in this book and the lack of character development in this book. If you are a character-driven reader, if you really like character development and learning your characters and knowing who your characters are and really living with the characters, I think you will like this book. The characters in this book are awesome. I love Ren, I love Tess, I love Vargo, I love all of them. The plot moves along, but it is a lot about the characters and the setting and just being immersed in the world almost more than the story, but the story is very intricate and entertaining as well. And that kind of leads into the final point that I'm going to make, why this book might not be the book for you. This book threw me for a loop. This book was amazing, but there's a reason I gave it 4 to 4.5 stars instead of 5 stars. And that is, this book goes one way for the first pretty much exact half of the book, like exactly halfway through the book. All of a sudden, the story you thought you were getting completely flips on its head, does a complete 180 and changes and goes a completely different direction. And I can't decide how I feel about that. On the one hand, it's kind of like, okay, in the first half you were kind of getting the character development, or not the character development, but you were kind of learning your cast of characters, you were learning your setting, you were kind of getting a feel for the magic and everything. And those are all points that I loved, but then it does this whole switch, and it basically goes 0 to 100 in 5 seconds halfway through the book. And that really threw me for a loop. And honestly, when that happened, I kind of put the book down and then I had trouble picking it back up because I got used to the speed and the story of the first half, and then I was being thrown into what felt like a completely different book halfway through. The more I read, the more I was like, oh wait, this is even better than the first half. But I mean, I would be doing a disservice to you as someone trying to decide if you should read this book if I didn't mention that and how it did affect my reading experience with this book. So that's why I am mentioning it as my reason why maybe this isn't the book for you. Some people don't want to dedicate 300 pages to setup before they get to the actual story. It's worth it, but it might not be worth it for you. And that's why, that's all I really have to say negative about this book. Other than that, the story, the characters, the magic, the setting, I loved it all. I think it was amazing. I think it was masterfully done. I already have book 2 ready to go. I can't wait to pick it up. So I just wanted to get my thoughts out about this book first. Okay, so those are my thoughts about The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. 3 reasons why I think you should read it, and 1 why maybe it's not the book for you. Let me know if you've read this book. Let me know what you thought of that, midway tempo switch kind of thing that happened. And just in general, like what your thoughts are about this book and this series. It's a trilogy. I do remember, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a trilogy or a series. It is a trilogy. 2 books are out. I would be a good booktuber if I actually looked up when the 3rd book comes out, but I didn't. So I'll put that in the description if I remember. But yeah, so that's it. Let me know if you want to read this book, if you have read this book, if you liked it, if you hated it, what you thought about it, whatever. And yeah, that's it for me today, and I will see you next time. Bye.